In mythology, divinity isn't always a birthright. Sometimes it's a reward, sometimes it's a curse, and sometimes it's just some bizarre accident. My name is Jason, and I'm a fantasy author who spends way too much time thinking about the different paths to power that we see in mythology, and today we're exploring the wildest path of them all. We're looking at the mortals who achieved godhood, and the stories are incredible, from enduring impossible trials to simply eating some weird grass and asking nicely. Now, our first story begins with a mother's grief. When Hades kidnapped Persephone, her mother Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, was so distraught that she abandoned her divine duties. The world began to freeze, crops failed, and humanity starved. During her frantic search, Demeter, disguised as an old woman, found refuge in the kingdom of Eleusis. King Celeus and his wife Metanira welcomed her warmly, unaware of her true identity, and hired her as a nurse for their infant son, Demophon. Grateful for their kindness, Demeter decided to give the family an extraordinary gift. She would make their son immortal. Her method, however, was unconventional. Each night she would secretly place the baby boy into the heart of the hearth fire. This ritual wasn't meant to harm him, it was meant to burn away his mortal frailties and replace them with an immortal divine essence. But the process wasn't instantaneous, it required several nights to complete. One night, Metanira walked in and saw her baby lying in the flames. She screamed in terror, breaking the spell. The child, stripped of Demeter's divine protection, was instantly consumed by the fire. After revealing her true form and apologizing for the, incineration, Demeter was determined to make it right. The poor couple, still in shock, had lost one son, but they still had his older brother, Triptolemus. Demeter offered to bestow her blessing on him instead, this time with no interruptions. The ritual was a success. But immortality was just the beginning. After Demeter finally negotiated Persephone's return from the underworld, with some terms and conditions, she gave Triptolemus a divine purpose. Humanity needed to learn advanced agriculture to survive the winter months when Demeter mourned her daughter's annual return to Hades. So she gave Triptolemus a magical winged chariot, a sack of seeds, and all of the knowledge of farming. He then flew across the world teaching humanity how to plow, sow, and harvest. For this, he wasn't just seen as an immortal prince, he was worshipped as a god of agriculture and a founder of civilization itself, forever linked to Demeter and Persephone in the sacred Eleusinian mysteries. His path to godhood began with a horrific accident, but was completed by fulfilling a divine mission that changed the world. But not all paths to divinity require such noble purpose, and sometimes it's just dumb luck. Glaucus was a humble mortal fisherman, and his story changed depending on who you ask, but they all end with him becoming a sea god. In one version, he was a skilled diver who helped build the legendary Argo, the ship that carried Jason and the Argonaut. During an attack on their voyage, Glaucus went overboard and vanished into the depths. The crew thought he was lost, but he had been transformed. His body became half man, half fish, and he emerged from the water as a minor sea deity, using his new powers to guide his former comrades on their quest. A simple, heroic end. But the other version of his story is far stranger. One day, after a successful morning of fishing, Glaucus landed on a secluded, beautiful shore he'd never seen before, and laid his catch out on the grass. As he began to clean the fish, something impossible happened. The fish, lying on a patch of strange herbs, began to twitch, and flop and scoot across the ground as if it were in water. One by one, his entire morning's catch swam across the grass and leaped back into the ocean. Stunned, Glaucus suspected the grass was magical. Overcome with curiosity, he did the only logical thing he could think of: he ate some. Immediately, an irresistible longing for the sea washed over him. He felt an unbreakable pull to leave the land behind forever. He ran to the water's edge, took a deep breath, and dove in, swimming as deep as he could. Then he called out to the primordial sea gods, Oceanus and Tethys, and pleaded with them to strip away his mortality and let him join the ocean. To everyone's surprise, they said yes. The poet Ovid described the transformation as a brutal purification. Glaucus said they chanted over him 9 times and ordered him to plunge himself under 100 rivers as torrents of water washed over his head, purging his mortal form. He blacked out, and when he woke up, his body was different and his mind was different. He was now a merman with a flowing green beard and a fish tail, but he was also a god. He instantly became the patron deity of fishermen, a prophet of the sea who could guide sailors, reveal the best fishing spots, and warn of coming storms. For a guy who just got high on some weird grass and wished really hard, it was a pretty cool deal. By the way, I don't allow sponsors, affiliates, or run ads in the middle of these videos. The channel is entirely self-funded. I do, however, have one thing I think you'll like if you enjoy these stories. It's my fantasy all-access library. In it, you get all of the mythology-related and inspired fantasy books that I and my team have written in a massive massive shared universe where all the world's myths coexist. It's how I'm able to keep making these videos, so if you're interested, you can check that out at the link down below. Not every mortal who achieved divinity earned it through great deeds or asked for it with a wish. Some were forced into it through unthinkable suffering. This is the story of Io, a princess of Argos. One day, Zeus saw her walking in a meadow and was overcome with lust, as Zeus does. He shrouded the land in a dark fog, cornered the terrified princess, and had his way with her. Meanwhile, on Olympus, his wife Hera noticed the unnaturally dark clouds over Greece and grew suspicious. She descended to investigate, and just as she arrived, the fog dissipated, revealing Zeus casually petting a beautiful, pure white cow. Hera was no fool. She knew this cow was a person, another one of her husband's victims. Playing along, she gushed over how lovely the cow was and asked if she could keep it as a pet. Trapped, Zeus reluctantly agreed. Hera immediately put Io in the care of Argus Panoptes, a giant covered in 100 eyes, who never needed to sleep. He led the miserable cow princess all over Greece, never letting her rest. Zeus, feeling a pang of guilt, as he should, sent his son Hermes to free her. Hermes, the god of trickery, approached Argus and played him a tune so soothing that for the first time in his life, all 100 of the giant's eyes closed in sleep, and Hermes promptly chopped off his head. But Io's freedom was short-lived. A furious Hera sent a new tormentor, a gadfly, one of the Furies in disguise, with orders to sting Io relentlessly. The constant agonizing bites drove the princess mad, forcing her to run endlessly across the world. Her journey took her to the Caucasus Mountains, where she found another victim of the gods, the Titan Prometheus, chained to a rock. Seeing her misery, Prometheus used his foresight to offer her a strange form of hope. He told her that she would continue to suffer, but if she kept moving west toward Egypt, Zeus would eventually have mercy. He would turn her back into a human, though she'd be stuck with the cow horns as a permanent reminder. He also told her that she was pregnant with Zeus' son, and that her distant descendant, a man named Heracles, would one day travel to these very same mountains, shoot the eagle that devoured Prometheus' liver every day, and finally set him free. Her survival was his only hope for freedom. So Io took his advice. She made it to the Nile River in Egypt, where Zeus, finally pleading with Hera, was allowed to restore her human form. And there in this new land, she was not seen as a tormented princess, but as a divine being. The Egyptians, noticing the goddess with cow horns, syncretized her with one of their own major deities. Io, the victim of Zeus, became known in Egypt as Isis, the wife of Osiris, a powerful goddess of healing, magic, and motherhood. She didn't choose godhood, it was forged in the fire of her suffering, transforming her from a helpless victim into one of the most revered goddesses in the ancient world. So you have a man who was promoted after his brother got cooked, a fisherman who stumbled upon magic seaweed, and a princess who was tormented into becoming a goddess. These stories are wild, but they reveal a core belief in the ancient mindset. The line between mortal and god was not a solid wall. The Greeks called this process apotheosis, which literally means to make a god of. It shows they believed this boundary was permeable, that under the right circumstances, a human could cross over. The paths were varied. The most famous is the heroic path, best exemplified by Heracles. He performed 12 impossible labors, proving his worth through strength and endurance. But even he had to be purified by fire on a funeral pyre before his divine soul could ascend to Olympus. This was apotheosis as a reward for unparalleled achievement. Then you have a path like Triptolemus's. He didn't fight monsters or win battles, he was chosen. He was given immortality as a gift, and then he earned his divine status by completing a mission that benefited all of humanity. This was apotheosis through divine purpose. And of course, there's the path of Io, where divinity wasn't a reward, but the end result of a terrible ordeal. Her suffering was so profound and her journey so epic that it transformed her into something more than human. She endured the worst the gods could throw at her and came out the other side as a powerful figure of worship. And her story shows that sometimes godhood isn't about what you do, but what you survive. And this idea wasn't just confined to myth. The Romans took the concept of apotheosis and made it a political tool. After Julius Caesar was assassinated, the Senate officially voted him a god. His adopted son, Augustus, then famously styled himself Divi Filius, the son of the divine one. This set a precedent where worthy Roman emperors were deified after their death, their souls said to ascend to the heavens. It was a way to legitimize power and elevate a ruler beyond mere mortality, proving that the dream of becoming a god was very much alive in the real world, not just in stories. Now, if you love exploring these connections between myth, history, and storytelling, I think you'll feel right at home in our community. It's called the Fantasy All Access Library, and it's a group hosted on a platform called School. It's more than just a place to chat. We do weekly live calls where we get to talk about these topics and other nerdy things in person. You get instant access to the ebooks and audiobooks of every fantasy novel I've ever written, as well as my team, and we release at least one brand new book every single month. So it's a place for people who are passionate about this stuff to go a little bit deeper, and if that sounds like you, the link is in the description. I'd love to see you there.